You're listening to Russia's Week in Review.
The drive-by media, the legacy media, the mainstream media, the Democrat Party all said that it was not possible for economic growth to ever be above the best it was under Obama, which was 1.8 to 2%. Obama had one outlier quarter, a little over 3, but that were extraneous circumstances there. Obama's GDP averaged 1.8 to 2% on the upside. And everybody said it can't possibly get any better than that, and it's foolish to think so. It's a new day in America, and those days of rabid capitalistic economic growth are over. Just like Obama and the media said, the jobs that we've lost, manufacturing and otherwise, would never, ever be coming back. Obama goes out to Elkhart, Indiana, telling people in the campaign year of 2016 not to think of their jobs coming back, that Trump's lying to them about it, asking, what's he going to do? Wave a magic wand. What's the policy? How's he going to do it? Hey, it ain't going to happen. I don't want all of you false hopes out here. Well, we got an economic growth now sustained at 4.2% and climbing. The stock market's approaching a new record high because Donaldus Trump last night, the deadline that he had set, we have a new trade deal with Canada to be added into the deal already reached with Mexico. It is what gets rid of NAFTA, just as he said he would do, just as he promised on the campaign trail. The new name of this thing is the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA. Trump has been speaking about this for the last half hour outside the Oval Office, and he's in a fine, fine mood, as is everybody gathered there. It is a major, major achievement. Again, it is something that the Democrat opposition, which includes, of course, the media, all said could not happen. It couldn't be done. It was a waste of time to try. As they said, scratching their heads, why does Trump care about trade deals anyway? And they've never understood the Trump voter caring about trade deals. They've never understood the connection Trump made and maintains with voters on trade. And it's not just NAFTA, it's any number of other things. Jared Kushner has come in for a lot of credit on this deal, which means he's going to be in the crosshairs right along with Brett Kavanaugh, about whom we will get to in due course. But the NAFTA news is going to be buried, which is one of the reasons why Trump is spending so much time talking about it, giving the drive-by media a tough time in ignoring it. But for Trump, it's electoral politics in addition to making America great again, as he defines it. Something he promised, something he claimed could be done, that would be done, and it has been done, and it is to the benefit of people that voted for it. It's to the benefit of millions and millions of Americans in countless numbers of ways. And he's making sure that as many people as possible are made aware of this. It had to kill the Washington Post to write about this. Headline, Canada agrees to join trade accord with U.S. and Mexico, sending new NAFTA deal to Congress. So we're renegotiating NAFTA. Canada, which said they wanted no part of it. They asked in at the last moment, hey, don't forget us. Can we be part of this too? Trump said, come on in. A reporter just asked Trump, does this mean the end of tariffs? Trump said, hell no, it doesn't mean the end of tariffs. If the European Union continues to send unfair trade deal-related products into the United States, we're going to slap tariffs on them. Remember how the drive-bys and the Democrats said that slapping tariffs on Chinese goods was going to provoke the Chi-Coms. It couldn't possibly be good. It might mean the end of whatever arrangement we're making with the North Koreans. It might destroy existing good relations with the Chi-Coms. Breaking news, China to cut import tariffs on wide range of products. China. The Chi-Coms will cut import tariffs on textile products and metals, including steel products.
to 8.4%, down from 11.5%, effective November 1st, according to the Chi-Com Finance Ministry yesterday. The Chi-Coms have pledged to take steps to increase imports. That means products from us
when you're in a room
this year, amid rising tension with some of its biggest trading partners, such as the United States. Bottom line, Trump said he was going to do X, Y, and Z, and A, B, and C in trade. And if we started A, B, and C, I think he's pretty much closing in on C. He has rebuilt the economy. He has created new jobs. His economic policies have. The elimination of onerous regulations, which is an ongoing thing, continues to show vast benefits for every ordinary American who makes this country work. And it's something he said could be done, that only he could do. And in fact, he was the only one that thought it was necessary to do. And it's now done. Here is the president today at the White House Rose Garden. We have 3 sound bites.
I have long contended that NAFTA was perhaps the worst trade deal ever made. Since NAFTA's adoption, the United States racked up trade deficits totaling more than $2 trillion, and it's a much higher number than that. With Canada and Mexico, it lost vast amounts of money and lost 4.1 million manufacturing jobs and 1 in 4 auto jobs. Lost about 25% of our auto jobs, even more than that. Throughout the campaign, I promised to renegotiate NAFTA, and today we have kept that promise.
For the last half hour, the president, maybe even longer than that, maybe 45 minutes, an extended statement. Only recently started taking questions. But I'll tell you what Trump was doing here, which is something that I've long advocated. He wasn't just announcing the deal got done. He was teaching why it was important, including to the drive-by media, who, for the most part, are clueless, don't understand capitalism, think that it's a big, bad meanie. And Trump is taking the occasion of all this attention to actually explain how trade works, and how the United States has been victimized over the course of many, many years because of American leadership believing, well, you know, we're the superpower in the world, we're the richest, we can afford to take it in the shorts now and then if it promotes good relations with our allies. And Trump stood up and said, there's no reason we should have our back pockets picketed. There's no reason that we should just let people have whatever they want from our treasury. There's no reason we should feel guilty about being powerful and wealthy. It doesn't mean that because we are so much wealthier and powerful that those who are not have dibs on what we've produced. Those days are over. That way of thinking is over. And he went through the whole process of explaining how trade works, why it is important, how the United States was getting the shaft, but more importantly, why it matters to ordinary, everyday people and their jobs and their careers, including farmers and a number of other type people about whom Washington thinks not very often and thinks very little. It's been a masterful performance. There is no question that Trump not only knows what he's talking about, he is the architect of what he's talking about, and he can run rings around people in discussing the process and in discussing the substance and the details of this new agreement. It puts anybody else that's ever tried this to shame. Everybody that has the chance to listen to this is going to understand exactly why it was important, what happened, why it happened, and why we benefit, and why that's good. And, you know, teaching as well as announcing is fundamental. I believe that's why the Republican Congress 1994 actually squandered its majority after a while. It's because they stopped teaching what they were doing and why as they did it. They made the fatal mistake of believing that the Republican victory in 1994 meant somehow that a majority of the country had overnight turned conservative. And so when they began to announce this cut, this reform, that reform, a lot of people didn't know what they were talking about, got scared to death. That lesson has been learned by none other than Donald Trump. Here's the next bite. Trump saying it is a privilege to trade with us. This kind of thinking we haven't seen. We've seen thinking in both parties who believe that it's up to us. to earn the respect of others. It's up to us to show them that we don't intend them any harm. It's up to us. And Trump's turning this 180 degrees around. It's a privilege to trade with us. We're the world economy. We're the future of the world economy. We're the future of world freedom and liberty. So the days of the America as the world's piggy bank are over.
This deal will also impose new standards requiring at least 75% of every automobile to be made in North America in order to qualify for the privilege of free access to our markets. It's a privilege for them to do business with us. And I'm not talking about Mexico. I'm talking about everybody. Everybody. It's a privilege for China to do business with us. It's a privilege for the European Union, who has treated us very badly, but that's coming along, to do business with us. Japan, every country. It's a privilege for them to come in and attack the piggy bank.
Yeah, it's a privilege to come in now. And as I say, it's a new way of seeing ourselves and our country without the need to make excuses, without the need to apologize. We really have it. It's, you can see evidence and signs of this in our own culture. The achieved and the accomplished somehow feel the need to apologize for it or to downplay it as some sort of new definition of humility, rather than having it used as a teachable moment, as something inspiring. As Trump points out, we want every country making their country great. We want every country putting their country first. We want everybody doing it that way. That's the whole point. For everybody to do better, but not by piggy banking the United States, by doing it on their own. These kinds of things are just, they're foreign to United Nations types, diplomatic types. Here's the final bite. Don't forget who told you this was not possible. Do not forget, it was Barack Hussein O. who said none of this could be done.
If you remember, the previous administration said we're not going to have manufacturing jobs anymore, essentially. We're not going to make things anymore? No, just the opposite. Going to be a manufacturing powerhouse and allow us to reclaim a supply chain that has been offshored to the world because of unfair trade issues.
So there you have it. It's not a sexy subject. NAFTA never was. I mean, it commanded a lot of attention. It was very controversial when it was ratified in the early into the mid 1990s. But in terms of being a subject that if cable news announced they're going to do 2 or 3 panels tonight on NAFTA to do a trade deal, they're not going to have a lot of people tune in. It's just the way of the world. So Trump is making sure with this extended event in the Rose Garden today that people get its importance. In terms of its importance as an election issue, it's crucial. It is, I wouldn't say crucial, but it's very important in terms of Trump being able to say to his voters, stick with me. I told you I was going to do this. I told you it could be done, and I told you the United States was going to come out as the champion in the subject of world trade. Don't doubt me. And in that sense, it's confidence inspiring that Trump, left alone in the Oval Office, free and clear to be who he is, will mean a bunch of great things happening for the country. And this can be parlayed into any number of campaign ads for the upcoming midterms, because it's going to be about a lot of things, not just the Kavanaugh nomination and other things. This is going to be a fundamental aspect in terms of turning out the Trump base. Now, the drive-bys, Trump had a simple ask here, no questions about Kavanaugh during the NAFTA thing, and an infobabe from the drive-by media persisted in trying to start questions about Kavanaugh, which has led to a discussion about it. Trump now talking about the FBI investigation, and I have to, I'm jumping the gun a little bit on this comment, but from Friday afternoon, the minute we learned that the FBI was going to be called on to do another week's worth of investigating, it was abundantly clear to me what all of this is. And it's simply about one word, folks. It's about delay. Delay and delay, and with each new revelation, the need to continue to delay. It's secondarily about Kavanaugh, that, they're still targeting Kavanaugh for total nuclear destruction. That's part and parcel of this, too. But the way it worked, very simple. You have Jeff Flake saying that he and Coons have struck a deal. There has to be a 1-week FBI investigation of the claims made by Christine Ballsy Ford. Never mind the fact that she doesn't have any evidence to back up her claim. Never mind that she is not credible. It's another thing that's grating on me, hearing everybody in the drive-by media talk about she's credible, a credible allegation. No, it's not credible. But she's being automatically assumed and described as credible, and of course Kavanaugh is not. Kavanaugh is not credible. She is. She has no evidence to back this up or corroboration at all. So the FBI says, okay, we'll do this for a week. And immediately, before sundown on Friday, a bunch of Democrats were, a week isn't long enough. It's silly to limit this. Then Trump, right on cue, said, I haven't limited the FBI. NBC is lying about it. I haven't limited the FBI in their scope. Meaning now Trump's on record, and everybody is, and if this thing needs to go beyond a week, well, it's going to go beyond a week. And I guarantee you that is the objective here. And that's why new allegations about Kavanaugh being a wild, violent drunk, need to trace that down. Kavanaugh may be having committed perjury about his calendars and stuff. Well, we got to track that down. Kavanaugh may not have the temperament to be on the court, given how enraged and angry he was during his testimony at the Judiciary Committee. We got to track that down. It's delay, and it's going to be tougher and tougher and tougher to hold to this Friday vote. So people are going to, and the Republican side are going to have to get some steel for a backbone and shut this down at some point. Or it's just going to continue to be delayed.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh.
The big voice on the right.
On the EIB network.
This is Kello, where food for thought sometimes comes out half-baked.
So the drive-bys wanted to talk to Trump about Kavanaugh, and he decided to go there, and he just eviscerated Richard Blumenthal and Cory Booker and Dianne Feinstein, and basically told the media that as far as he's concerned, they are the Democrat Party too. He talked about Blumenthal lying for years about having served in Vietnam when he had never even been to the country, served with valor as a Marine. He said, this guy, a serial liar on his own resume, is questioning Brett Kavanaugh. And he went on to talk about Cory Booker, who has admitted to fondling women by the way, that was an attempt to cleanse himself, to show that he has reformed when he did it. When he accused Feinstein, sort of quasi-accused her of leaking the Christine Ballsy Ford letter. He did this Saturday night at West Virginia, and it was hilarious the way he thinks he knows that Dianne Feinstein leaked. I don't have time to explain it. I'm going to have to show, for those of you watching on the Ditto Cam, I'll do my best to show you what Trump did. He imitated Feinstein when the whole question of leaking came up. And he's now they're asking him, if it's proven that Kavanaugh was a drunk in high school, does that mean you'll pull a nomination? And Trump is talking to them about that. So we'll keep going here. Hang on.
You're listening to Rush's Week in Review.
Hi, welcome back. Rush Limbaugh and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Great to have you here. Telephone number, we'll get to your calls in due course, 800-282-2882. So the president continues to take questions in the Rose Garden from drive-by media. I would jip it, but the things I want to get to here, and I can just as easily relay what the president said. He's just laying the Democrats out. He's laying them out for the lying tricksters and skunks that they are. He is linking the media to the Democrat Party, which we do it all the time here, but you don't really hear the president make it that direct and obvious. he has just eviscerated the credibility of all of these accusing Democrats, from Cory Spartacus Booker to Richard Blumenthal to Dianne Feinstein. And what he did with Feinstein, if you recall, toward the tail end of the hearing on Friday, before the vote came, somebody raised a question of how in the world did Christine Ballsy Ford's letter to Dianne Feinstein leak? Because we are made to understand that the letter said that she didn't want anybody to know her name and that she didn't want to come forward, yet the woman had written the Washington Post. She'd called the Washington Post tip line, the New York Times. She has an op-ed published in the Washington Post. But all along we're told she didn't want to go public. So people were trying to claim, for all this talk about what Kavanaugh's done to this poor woman, it's the Democrat Party and the Democrats on this committee that have put her through this emotional ringer. It's so unfair and such spotlights. And it became obvious that there could be only 3 sources for the leak because of limited possession of the letter. One would be Senator Feinstein and or her staff. The other would have to be somebody in the media or the lawyers for Christine Ballsy Ford who had seen the letter. And so some senators began to say that it could well be Senator Feinstein, and she sat there and fumed while this was happening. And as all the other possibilities were mentioned, she eventually asked for a point of order to Chairman Grassley and said, Chairman Grassley, I need to react. I need to respond to this outrageous allegation that I or my staff have leaked this letter. Just for the record, I just asked my staff if any of them leaked it, and they have assured me that they didn't. But what we saw when she was doing, she turned around to her staff sitting behind her. And she starts mouthing. We can't hear what she's saying because it's off mic. But she's obviously asking them, did anybody here leak it? She turns her, did you leak it? Did you leak it? She turns back to the camera. We didn't leak it. Mr. Chairman, we didn't leak it. And Trump made fun of this and mocked it in his West Virginia appearance on Saturday night by saying, oh, is this how we're going to determine who leaked something? She gets to turn to her staff and ask them, and they deny it, and that's it? Meanwhile, Kavanaugh sits over here and has to undergo his 7th FBI background check. His accuser has no corroboration and no evidence, and he's presumed to have done it. And Dianne Feinstein gets to turn around and ask her staff, hey, did any of you leak this letter? And they say, oh, no, wasn't us. She turns back around and says, we didn't do it, Mr. Chairman. As though case closed, it wasn't us. They had to have done it. It was strategic. Just like what happened on Friday was strategic. Ladies and gentlemen, I became aware yesterday of a transcript of a conference call that occurred last week among and between Democrat activists who were planning exactly what happened on Friday. It's laid out in this thing. Now, unfortunately, I can't reproduce this and put it at rushlimbaugh.com because I don't legally have it. But I've got it. I'm not going to mention any names, but the names of the Democrat front groups and organizations are here, and the strategies that they used, and it makes it crystal clear that they were going to target Jeff Flake, that he was seen as the most malleable and the easiest to intimidate. The elevator incident, where it just happened that 2 nearly insane anti-Kavanaugh, pro-Democrat activists ended up there in Flake's elevator with a CNN camera right there to catch what happened, and they started shouting, and they started accusing, and they started pointing fingers. He got scared to death. It was all part of the strategy to turn him. And there was a 3-point strategy. The Flake strategy was number 3 if the other 2 had bombed out. And they pulled it off. They did it. John Fund has a piece today at National Review, who was behind the Flake setup. Acorn's tactics live on in the senator's elevator confrontation with activists from a George Soros-backed group. On Friday morning, two women raced past reporters and security officers and blocked the senator's only elevator in the Capitol. They cornered Jeff Flake, who had just announced he was going to vote yes. This is in the morning. It's before the hearing began. It was on his way to the hearing. They cornered Flake, who had just announced in a Republican caucus he was going to vote yes on Kavanaugh, out of the committee and onto the Senate floor, full debate. The women would not let Flake leave the elevator until they had yelled at him face to face for several minutes. You could see him wilting, shrinking, shaking. The CNN camera happened to be there to broadcast the whole thing live, and from there it went viral. There's no doubt that CNN was in on this ambush. The ambush was planned. Jeff Flake was targeted as one of the 3 points of a strategy that the left-wing activist groups, there might have been 7 or 8 of them on this conference call. The two women were Anna Maria Archila and Maggie Gallagher. The two women who confronted Flake inside the elevator, perhaps because the women expressed such raw emotion, few media outlets dug into their political activism. They didn't want to dig into their political activism. They wanted to portray them as average, ordinary American women who just happened to get into the building. They didn't want anybody to know they were Democrat activists. They knew they were Democrat activists. CNN knew this. Look, everybody's in on this. This whole thing is a gigantic setup. The Democrats don't care about another FBI investigation. That's just a trick for more delay. Kavanaugh's already undergone 6. You think 6 background checks on Kavanaugh missed the fact that he was such a drunk he beat people up, which is the latest allegation from somebody who knew him at Yale? Guy's now a professor in North Carolina, has a piece in the Raleigh News and Observer that Kavanaugh got belligerently drunk. And he's seen it. Well, nobody has any information on Kavanaugh and his drinking in the last 20 years. All that happened was that Kavanaugh ended up number 1 in his class in high school, in college, and in law school. Somebody so drunk, so sloppy, planning his next gang rape. I'll guarantee you that kind of person does not become number 1 in anything decent. But Kavanaugh was. He was number 1 in his class in high school, in college, and in law school. Kavanaugh has achievements that 90% of us wouldn't even bother to dream about. They are so daunting. Most of us wouldn't even attempt them. They have to go back to high school, have to go back to college to find evidence of binge drinking. You do that, you're going to find binge drinking on the part of a lot of people. You're going to find evidence like that today, because don't you know, ladies and gentlemen, don't you know the stress of life in America is so bad? It's so horrible that there's all kinds of self-medication going on. All kinds of people are drinking. And they make excuses for them because the pressure is so intense. But you don't find anybody testifying that Kavanaugh's been a fall down, beat 'em up drunk the last 25 or 30 years, do you? Or even beyond that. Next, they said he may have committed perjury if he lied about the people on that calendar entry, if he lied about what those terms mean. If he's committed perjury, he is gone. We need the FBI to look into that. We need the FBI to look into whether or not he beats people up on Yale's campus. And we need to really track down this judicial temperament of his. Why? You see the way he acted in our committee hearing on Friday? He was yelling and screaming. That's not the kind of temperament we want from a judge. Well, my buddy Andy McCarthy makes a great point. If you want to test, if you want to see Kavanaugh's judicial temperament, there's a place you can go. And it is called the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, where Kavanaugh has been serving for years. And all you have to do is go there and study his work. And then to the courts prior to that, where he was a judge. All of this is delay. They hope to find new women, drag new women out with new allegations. They hope to come up with new charges. The minute additional 1 week FBI investigation was agreed to, the Democrats started saying 1 week isn't going to be enough. We can't. Well, a weekend was enough for thousands and hundreds of thousands of Hillary Clinton emails. James Comey's even gotten in on this. James Comey now making no doubt about his partisanship in this and his never Trump, anti-Trump status, which is what all of this really is. If you boil all this down, what this is, folks, hatred for Donald Trump by the Washington establishment, by the American left, and by the media. Unadulterated, undiluted, raw, poisonous hatred. Brett Kavanaugh is going to be destroyed in the process of damaging and getting rid of Donald Trump. They want to delay this beyond the midterms because they are convinced they're going to win. And when they win the Senate, House and Senate, they can impeach Trump and they can paralyze the rest of his administration. And if Kavanaugh would happen to get in the court, they're going to impeach him too. Gerald Nadler, who runs the Judiciary Committee for the Democrats in the House. He's not even the chairman. He's the ranking member, and he's already promising to impeach Kavanaugh for perjury and whatever else that has occurred so far if the Democrats win the House. They can't stand it. They cannot stand it Donald Trump is president. They cannot stand it Donald Trump is putting a tremendous, absolutely great human being and conservative on the Supreme Court. It's driving them hysterically crazy. And so all of this, all these new charges, all these new suggestions for investigation, all these calls for more time, all it is delay. The next time you hear Kavanaugh is reportedly very frequently in college have gotten drunk and hit people in the face, substitute one word for that: delay. This is all about continuing to delay it, which is why it is as it has always been. At some point, the Republicans are going to have to shut this down and call for a vote. Now, is anybody else like me concerned? I mean, the FBI leadership, many of them are gone, but a lot are still there, has done its level best to screw Donald Trump. Working with the intelligence agencies, we had that cabal conducting a silent coup to get rid of Trump during the campaign and then destroy his transition, and they have been trying to destroy his presidency with his phony Russia collusion, the Mueller investigation, and all that. Now, that same agency, with James Comey with an email now encouraging them to dig deep. Keep digging. Keep digging, Comey says. There's got to be something there. The same guy that exonerated Hillary Clinton without even an interview. The same guy that said they found new questionable emails on the laptop of Carlos Danger, and in a matter of 3 days reviewed 100,000 of them to find there was nothing there. So they can do whatever they're going to do in a day or two if they want to. But then, what happens if the FBI looks into all of this and reports? By the way, they reach no conclusions, and if they do, they will know a lot. But if in the 302s, the forms and the results of interviews, if they produce no evidence for Christine Ballsy Ford, if they produce no evidence for any other allegation, if they cannot produce anything that says Kavanaugh did it, whatever it is. In other words, if this investigation clears Kavanaugh like every FBI investigation heretofore has, you think the Democrats could say, oh, okay, well, good. We got our week. Now we can vote. You think that's what's going to be the case? Hell no. They're going to say the investigation is not thorough. The investigation was stilted by Trump. The investigation was cheating. The investigation was not long enough. Whatever. They're not going to accept anything here. At some point, they're going to have to be treated as the minority they are, and all of this just shut down and vote.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh,
The soundtrack of your conservative life.
on the EIB Network.
Callow News Talk 1320 107.9.
Okay, we're back. Rush Limbaugh emitting vocal vibrations, rhetoric, and resonance, coast to coast and border to border, on the most listened to radio talk show in many countries, not just this one. Okay, this is Sharon in Lititz, Pennsylvania. How do you pronounce where you are?
It's Lidditz.
Lidditz, good.
Yes, sir.
Good. What's happening?
Hi, Rush. Thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
I've been curious since about the beginning of this year, several times you mentioned that an incident or an occurrence has yet to happen that will affect or seriously affect the midterms. I was curious to hear if you think this Kavanaugh nomination that's gone sour is that incident.
Well, it could be. I mean, but the point was, I didn't have anything specific in mind. It's just that we get a poll in June or a poll in May or even July, and it tells us what the public is thinking of doing in the November elections. And my point was, this is silly. This poll doesn't mean anything. Does anybody remember the poll in July of 2016 or in August? It doesn't mean anything because it's not when the election is. And I said the events are going to shape the midterms haven't happened yet. I said that in July, August, September. And this is exactly the kind of thing I had in mind. But there's going to be something beyond this.
Oh, dear.
This is going to get resolved one way or the other, depending on how it's resolved. Yeah, it's going to affect turnout. It's going to affect votes. If the Democrats lose this, if Kavanaugh gets confirmed, then what are Democrat voters going to do? They're just going to be really enraged and show up and vote. Are they going to be mad, depressed, and sit home? Who knows? But this thing is going to get if this is not resolved before the election, then it's a defeat anyway, because all the Democrats want here is delay, delay, delay. But my only point was that those polls in the summer are largely irrelevant because there are things that are going to happen much closer to the election that nobody can predict that are going to have a great impact on it. This is one of those things, yes, but I don't know if it's the final one.
Somebody has to have the guts to say it. Rush on the EIB Network.
Entertaining talk and news when it happens on Kello and Kello.com.
You're listening to Rush's Week in Review.
Yeah, greetings to you, music lovers, thrill seekers, conversationalists all across the fruited plain. I am the famous and well-known. And if you want to be on the program, the telephone number is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushmo@eibnet.us. Could the pollsters once again have it all wrong? Could the pollsters be mistaken, or could they be lying to us? That will be my focus for the initial parts of the program today. First, President Trump in Johnson City, Tennessee, a rally last night. Interestingly, none of the cable channels covered it wall to wall, as they usually do, but that's not a big deal. I had people sending me notes. Fox isn't even covering it, Rush. What's up? Doesn't matter. These are local events, folks. They're local events. They are intended, these Trump rallies are intended to influence local voting, local interest, local participation. Campaign estimates 20,000 Trump supporters at massive overflow rally in Tennessee. Trump's new campaign manager, Brad Parscale, or Parscale, not sure how he pronounces it, estimated there were 20,000 people at the rally, 7,000 inside, and 2,000 inside an overflow room, and thousands outside. Representative Phil Rowe of Tennessee said 92,000 people had requested tickets to the event. Some supporters arrived Sunday night to stake their positions in line. It's like a new iPhone release. The rally was held at the Freedom Hall Civic Center, large screen set up by the campaign for the overflow crowd. Watching outside on the big screen with all these fine folks is still better than watching at home, wrote one Trump supporter. Trying to estimate precise crowd size, impossible on the ground as the line snaked various ways up and down the hill around the parking lots. But I'd still place it as enough to fill at least one and probably two more Freedom Halls. This from another tweeter. So 92,000 tickets requested, 20,000 people in attendance in Little Johnson City, Tennessee. What's going on here? How does that translate to any kind of a blue wave? Now, I realize it's Tennessee, maybe Trump country and so forth, but it does not suggest that there's any lack of enthusiasm on the Republican side. Now, let's go to the audio soundbites, and we're going to start with audio soundbite number one. Here we have CNN. sounding the alarm. House races are tightening. CNN says there could be a GOP wave in the Senate, and that Kavanaugh is energizing Republicans. The show is CNN's newsroom. The co-host Jim Sciutto was asking their senior politics writer, Harry Enton, about CNN polls on various Senate races that are within or close to the margin of error. The question, polls are tightening out there. No, the question was, oh my God, oh no, Harry, the polls are tightening. Oh my God, no. What does that tell you? What's going on, Harry?
There are so many races that are within the margin of error. Missouri, Nevada, Tennessee, Florida. The list goes on and on and on. We have all of these close races, which means we have a best estimate about what might happen in the Senate come November, but it really could be a Democratic wave or it could be a Republican wave if the polls are off in one direction.
A Republican wave in the Senate, in the House?
In the Senate, not in the House.
Republican wave in the Senate. Oh, no. That means no impeachment of Trump. Well, that means an impeachment if the Democrats get the House. Don't think so, but if they do, it would die in the Senate, unless there's a bunch of Jeff Flake clones in there, because they would never vote to convict if the Republicans hold the Senate or even swell the ranks. So the panicked host, Jim Sciutto, he couldn't believe what he heard there. Blue wave, red wave in the Senate? He says there was discussion of a blue wave, big generic ballot advantage for Democrats. Do you notice a tightening there as we get closer to the election?
I will say the generic ballot does seem to be tightening a little bit, which is actually good news for Republicans. I think that, there's a lot of talk, with Brett Kavanaugh and this whole confirmation mess, that in fact that might hurt Republicans. But it doesn't actually seem to be so far. We're actually seeing some tightening in the Senate races, and more than that, we're seeing tightening in the House races.
I'm going to leave you a little side observation about this, but what did I tell you? These generic ballots way back last December, that's when they first started harping on this. And back then, 9 months ago, the Democrats had a 12-point advantage, and that's when all the talk of a blue wave began. And that's when all the talk of the Democrats winning back Congress began. And it went all through the year. Democrat advantage in the generic ballot was 12, 5, 7, and the Republicans pulled even in a couple of them. The Democrats once again broke away. And all during it, your host, have been doing this a long time, said it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. Let me remind you of a motivation technique utilized by the coach of the New England Patriots, one Bill Belichick. Prior to one of the Super Bowls the Patriots were in, and he might do it frequently, I know of one time, he gathered the players for a team meeting and said, we're going to have a little fun. We're going to watch a horse race. He had videotape of a horse race that nobody had seen. It was not a big race. You could allow the players to make friendly bets and wagers on who was going to win. So the players made their bets, and Belichick starts the tape of the race and stops it at the first turn. It's okay. Lay your bets. Tell me who's going to win. Players go nuts making their choices. Tape resumes. Belichick stops it at the halfway point. Anybody want to change their bet? Anybody want to double down? Players go into gear making their bets. At the final turn, Belichick stops the tape of the horse race again, asks the players if they want to make additional bets or get out of ones they've made. Players do what they do. Belichick resumes tape to the finish line. Makes the point it didn't matter at any point in this race when I stopped the tape. There's no way anybody could have known at the first turn, at the halfway point, or at the final turn who was going to win. Yet look what you were doing. You were making bets. You were guessing. Some of you probably were certain. The bottom line is finish. You never know before it's over who's going to win, no matter what any kind of expert tells you. It was a motivational technique designed to get the players to realize first quarter, halftime, third quarter, finish. Do your job. Same thing here. Polls in January in front of a November election doesn't mean anything. Polls in June, July don't mean anything. They're interesting for the media, which is trying to shape public opinion with these polls, but the polls do not give any indication of the final outcome. A poll in July or August would not have contained any of the Kavanaugh news, so how relevant could it have been? Answer, none. Zilch, zero, nada. And so now, here we are on October 2nd, and CNN is panicking. Races are tightening in the House. This wasn't supposed to happen. Why? They had all their pre-election polls. They had the generic ballot. They've had this in the can. This has been in the bank since last December. In their minds, it's been over. It's just a matter of letting the calendar play out. Now, all of a sudden, House races are tightening, and there could be a blue wave in the Senate. Red wave in the Senate. Republicans could come out of nowhere at the final turn and take over. Well, we don't know if the Republicans were ever really far behind. We don't know anything because there wasn't a vote back in December or January or July or August. We don't know anything. And we don't know anything now. And we won't know anything until the day after Election Day, or maybe later that night. Now, one other brief observation here. Once again, do you notice Mr. Enton snuck it in there? I think, there's a lot of talk. Brett Kavanaugh, this whole confirmation mess that in fact might hurt Republicans. It doesn't seem to be so far. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the reason he's saying this, and everybody else, because of my viral prediction of last week that if the Republicans don't confirm Kavanaugh, that the Democrats are going to win everything. That prediction of mine went viral. Drive-bys loved it. They love it when the leader of the GOP, in their minds, me, starts ripping the Republicans. When I start predicting I'm going to lose, that's when I become totally credible. That's when they run sound bites of me predicting it all over the world. You notice how easy it would be to trick them. They run with that, and they run. Now, all of a sudden, it's just the exact opposite. It's just the exact opposite. Why all of this attention on Kavanaugh and what the Republicans is actually going to help them? How can that be? Limbaugh just said they were going to lose. They are totally confused. And as I said yesterday, what is the sense in saying that we have to lose in order to win? People say, well, let Kavanaugh go down. That'll really fire him up. That'll fire everybody up. No. The way you get on the bandwagon, the way you get people on the bandwagon, the way you get people wanting to be on your team is win, including winning the Kavanaugh nomination. Now let's go to further news. It buttresses some of this. From thehill.com, red state Democrats face nightmare scenario on Kavanaugh. This article shows beyond a doubt the Democrats have brought up all of these unfounded sexual allegations, and now Kavanaugh. Do you realize the latest offense? The New York Times has run a story saying that Brett Kavanaugh threw ice on a fellow bar patron back in his days at Yale. He threw ice. This goes to show just how unfit for the Supreme Court Brett Kavanaugh is. Of course, the New York Times, when learning that Bill Clinton told Juanita Broaddrick, put a little ice on your lip, babe, while walking out of the room after allegedly raping her, they thought that was not worthy of being published or printed. That wasn't enough to that. I mean, put some ice on that lip, babe. Nah, no news there. But Kavanaugh throwing ice, allegedly, on a bar patron. Stop the presses. The guy is evil. He is not qualified. So all these unfounded sexual allegations, they hope, ultimately, what all this has been about, hoping to force Kavanaugh to drop out. That's what they have. Just like the Mueller investigation. Mueller investigation was designed to depress Trump's approval numbers so that Trump would have to resign because of total loss of support in Washington by Republicans. If they could get his approval numbers down to the 20s, because they succeeded in making everybody think that Trump cheated with the Russians, then Trump would lose all support, as Nixon did in the Watergate era, and have to resign. That was the objective, because there's no way they were going to impeach Trump. There's no way the Mueller investigation is going to lead to Trump being indicted. The only hope they had was to drive public approval for Trump way down the 20s and be done with him. What they're trying to do here is force Kavanaugh to resign from the nomination, withdraw. or to force Trump to withdraw. That and delay. They still hope that they can force Kavanaugh out. A second Democrat, this is from the article here at thehill.com, a second Democrat senator said there's widespread disbelief in the caucus that Kavanaugh is holding on. Quote, I just had a conversation with a colleague who said they couldn't believe he hasn't dropped out yet. That's a quote from an unnamed senator. Get the story at thehill.com. This isn't going well. David French at National Review, a never-Trumper, maybe the leader of the never-Trumpers, nevertheless has a piece claiming the Kavanaugh case is collapsing. The case against Kavanaugh is collapsing because the witnesses don't have any evidence. They've got no proof of anything. Swetnick, Ramirez, Ford, add it all up, and there's zero corroboration. And one of these women appears to be not all there. The Swetnick babe. Details forthcoming. So hoping Kavanaugh would withdraw, hoping Trump would pull the nomination has been one of the objectives here, along with delay. The story for thehill.com, Senate Democrats up for re-election this year in deep red states face a nightmare decision on how to handle Kavanaugh. Vulnerable Democrats are hoping Republicans will force him to withdraw his nomination, allowing them to avoid politically divisive votes. This is an important point. It has not been stressed enough. The Democrats thought that by running with every disgusting allegation they could find, no matter how unsubstantiated, they would be able to force Kavanaugh to drop out or force Trump to withdraw his name. It hasn't worked. Kavanaugh won't cave, and the number of arrows they have in their quiver is dwindling. The Democrats in the toughest positions are Senators Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, Joe Donnelly of Indiana, and Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Heitkamp and Manchin are undecided. Both are seeking another 6-year term in states that Trump won by double digits in 2016, and I'm back to the crowds that Trump is drawing. 92,000 requests for tickets. Johnson City, Tennessee, 20,000 people show up. People line up 2 days in advance to hope to get in. Kind of flies in the face of Trump's losing his luster out there. So Donnelly, Heitkamp, Manchin. Now you might say, well, where's Susan Collins? Well, Susan Collins is, I want the FBI to investigate the gang rape allegation. They have been. The babe Swetnick is she's not withdrawing it, but she's, well, maybe Kavanaugh wasn't in the room. He was standing outside, and this is too big a coincidence. So she's pulling back on the allegation that he started and organized and then participated in the gang rapes. What more do you need, Miss Collins? She doesn't have any evidence. She's backing off of it. Avenatti's doing damage control now. Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill falls behind her Republican opponent after opposing Kavanaugh. Polling data doesn't suggest any of this is going to happen. Republican candidate in Missouri, Josh Hawley. McCaskill now far behind. One poll shows her far behind Hawley. According to the Federalist, the new poll by Remington Research Group, 48% said they're planning to vote for Hawley, 46% McCaskill. That is way below how McCaskill has been performing and will be back.
Rush. Make the commitment on the EIB network.
This is Kello, where thoughts are molded and an occasional rumor is milled.
Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, great to have you with us here at the EIB network and the distinguished Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies, Advanced Anti-Media Studies, and Anti-Leftist Studies. The drive-by media, ladies and gentlemen, continuing to try to make this investigation that's supposed to be over in a week as confusing as possible. President Trump said back on Friday that he was leaving all this to the Senate. He totally backed away from it, says, it's their problem, it's their issue, let them handle it. But now the New York Times and the Washington Post, the rest of the drive-bys, are claiming the White House is calling the shots behind the scenes. and expanding the scope of the FBI's inquiry. Made this point yesterday. New York Times could not wait to run the story. White House expanding inquiry. It came the same day we had a leak from Fox News that the FBI said they're ready to wrap up today. A lot of people reacting to that, by the way. Now, I have an article here at thehill.com that says the White House is denying everything. They're denying that they're calling the shots, and they're denying expanding the scope. And Trump did not expand the scope. He simply reacted at a rally to what the media is saying. He got a little suckered in by NBC News reporting a bunch of fake news that the White House was limiting the scope. Trump said, I'm not limiting anything. That became White House expands scope, which is what the Democrats want. So there's a whole bunch of fake news in this that we will straighten out today.
You're listening to Russia's Week in Review.
Now, looky here, the New York Times. Headline, Kavanaugh questioned by police after bar fight in 1985. This is about the ice throwing incident. Kavanaugh was accused of throwing ice on someone for some unknown reason 33 years ago. This news was referred to the New York Times and FBI by this professor at North Carolina something or other university named Chad Luddington. He's a wine and cheese professor, I guess. Mr. Luddington's account does not match the police report on this incident. By the way, as an undergrad at Yale, Brett Kavanaugh was involved in an altercation at a local bar during which he was accused of throwing ice on another patron, according to the police report. The incident, which occurred in September 1985 during Kavanaugh's junior year, resulted in Kavanaugh and four other men being questioned by the New Haven cops. Kavanaugh not arrested. The police report stated that a 21-year-old man had accused Kavanaugh of throwing ice on him for some unknown reason. Again, I remind you about ice. Bear in mind, even though the New York Times had the story of Clinton allegedly raping Juanita Broaddrick in 1992 and telling her, put some ice on her busted lip, the New York Times refused to run it. They claimed it was the typical kind of garbage that comes up close to an election. So Juanita Broaddrick saying Clinton said, put some ice on that, babe, after allegedly raping her. Not big enough news for the New York Times. Brett Kavanaugh throwing ice allegedly on somebody at a bar. That stopped the press's news. A witness to the fight, the wine and cheese professor from North Carolina something or other university, Chad Luddington, said that Chris Dudley, a Yale basketball player who was friends with Kavanaugh, then threw a glass that hit the 21-year-old man in the ear, according to the police report, which was obtained by the New York Times. Ever intrepid, tracking down every detail. The report said the victim, Dom Casalino, was bleeding from the right ear, was treated at a hospital. A detective was notified of the incident 1:20 in the morning. Mr. Dudley denied it, according to the report. For his part, speaking to the officers, Kavanaugh didn't want to say if he threw ice or not, the police report said. Hope the FBI gets to the bottom of this, don't you? I'm on pins and needles here. Did he not throw ice on somebody? And if so, is that what we want as Supreme Court justice? Somebody threw ice on somebody back in 1985? Yeah, that's right. Is he going to next throw ice on Ruth Bader Ginsburg when he disagrees with her in Justice Sessions deciding cases? Is that what we can expect? And will Ginsburg even be awake? You know, she fell asleep during a State of the Union address one time. And she had too much wine before the event. But that's, of course, that's not unmentionable. The outlines of the ICE controversy, first referred to in a statement on Sunday by the wine and cheese professor at North Carolina, Chad Luddington, one of Kavanaugh's college classmates, a member of the Yale basketball team. Anyway, that's how absurd this is. Other news, a New York Times reporter is a Yale lawyer who denounced Kavanaugh before reporting on him. The New York Times' latest attack piece on Kavanaugh, authored by a Yale law lecturer who previously denounced Kavanaugh on Twitter, The New York Times reported on Monday evening that Kavanaugh once threw ice on a guy at a bar, prompting a bar fight between the man and one of Kavanaugh's buddies. That's a terrible description of what happened. Even the New York Times says the other guy started it by cursing Kavanaugh and his friend for looking at him. Kavanaugh denied to the cops that he threw any ice anyway. The piece was co-authored by Emily Bazelon and Ben Protess, but it does not mention at least one of the authors had already decided in July that Kavanaugh was not fit for the court. Well, it's no surprise here. New York Times would have a biased reporter on the case. Somebody who knew Kavanaugh at Yale, hated him then, hates him now. Good. We'll assign that guy to the Kavanaugh case. Drive-bys caught up with Dianne Feinstein, who made it easy to be caught up with. She wanted to be caught with the media. And this was a question about the floor vote on Friday. The turtle. We have the sound bites. The turtle. The turtle. For the turtle. He was on fire moments ago. Last night and just now, McConnell. And in fact, let's do those first. Grab audio soundbite. Let's see. Well, let's play number 3. Let's set this up. This was yesterday, me on my own show. This has got to be stopped because it's not real. The Democrats are allowed to make it up as they go. Submit names they want the FBI to talk to. Investigations don't work that way. FBI follows evidence, leads, and when they don't find anything, unlike Bob Mueller, they stop. Mueller's been looking for collusion with Trump and Russia for 2 years and hasn't found any, but he's still going, and that's exactly what this is going to be if somebody doesn't stand up and stop this. Somebody on the Senate Judiciary Committee needs to stand up, or Mitch McConnell needs to stand up and start vouching for the investigation that's taken place. There are 6 separate FBI background checks of Brett Kavanaugh. Somebody needs to speak up for him. Somebody needs to vouch for him. Somebody needs to stand up and say they have been thorough and they haven't found anything, or he wouldn't be where he is now, sitting on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. But that's not happening. Well, but it is now. Late yesterday afternoon, Senate floor, here is the turtle.
On top of its 6 prior investigations of Judge Kavanaugh, Democrats demanded a supplemental investigation. If you listen carefully, Mr. President, you can practically hear the sounds of the Democrats moving the goalposts. But their goal hadn't moved an inch, not an inch. The goal's been the same all along. The time for endless delay and obstruction has come to a close. Judge Kavanaugh's nomination is out of committee. We're considering it here on the floor. And, Mr. President, we'll be voting this week.
Late yesterday afternoon, Mitch McConnell on the floor of the Senate, and he got so much support for what he did yesterday. Amazing how that happens, isn't it? He heard from so many people what a great thing that he went out and he did it again. He went out there again, and he recycled the old Bill Clinton line to boot. Here's McConnell from just, a couple hours ago.
When Judge Kavanaugh demonstrated his widely acknowledged brilliance, open-mindedness, and collegiality at his confirmation hearings, some chose a darker road. The politics of personal destruction were willfully unleashed. After the FBI shares what they've found, senators will have the opportunity to vote. We'll have the opportunity to vote no on the politics of personal destruction. We'll have the opportunity to vote yes on this fine nominee.
That doesn't even touch what he did. He went out there and he didn't call these guys out by name, but he quoted some of the most outrageous lies that Democrats have been telling, including members of the Judiciary Committee. He pointed out their hypocrisy. He pointed out their prevarications. He pointed out their straight up and up lies. It was so good that it forced Chuck U. Schumer to go to the floor to rebut it. And Chuck U. went out there and tried to make chicken salad out of what it was incredible listening to Chuck U. I believe Christine. She was eminently credible. Judge Kavanaugh is not. It's the other way around. We have a lifetime of investigation of Brett Kavanaugh, folks. There have been 7 FBI investigations, background checks. We have had more people looking into every nook and cranny of Brett Kavanaugh's life, and we haven't even begun to look at hers. We're just assuming she's credible because that's the Democrats' position on this. Now, they can go back and they can look at anything Kavanaugh's done, but she is off limits for some. We can't go and find out what she did at all those beach parties. We can't go out and find out what she did when she was out there skiing and surfing and flying around and doing it. None of that's been done. And yet she is credible and he isn't. And now Di-Fi. The drive-bys ran into Di-Fi. She was going someplace up on Capitol Hill. A reporter said, Senator Feinstein, would a floor vote Friday on Kavanaugh be too soon?
Well, I believe it is. I believe it's too soon. It's Tuesday.
Stop the tape.
And
it's what everybody agreed to. Oh, by the way, you know what Flake is now saying? This guy, Flake. There's a part of me that thinks that he was in on this from the get-go. There's a part of me that thinks that he was not scared to death when he got harassed and protested in the elevator. There's part of me thinks he's, because he hates Trump, and that's what all this really is. All of this is just aimed at people hating Trump, and Kavanaugh is in the way. In order to get Trump, they got to get Kavanaugh. But Flake is out there saying, you know what, Kavanaugh's too partisan for me. I don't think we need that on the court. Wait a minute, you said you were going to vote for him Friday morning, Flake. And then you did. Flake voted for Kavanaugh after claiming he was going to vote for it. Now he's out saying he's too partisan for me. I don't want that on the court. I don't think we can do that. Flake is demonstrating that his name is actually an apt description of his personality. And now here's Feinstein. He wanted a week. Everybody agreed to a week, and as predicted by me and many others, within hours of agreeing to 1 week, the Democrats, it's not long enough. And here's Di-Fi. Take this from the top again. Senator Di-Fi, would a floor vote Friday be too soon?
Oh, I believe it is.
Yes.
I believe it's too soon.
Yes.
It's Tuesday,
yes.
And we have to put all the facts together. Yeah.
We have.
And this is, I guess it's my 10th Supreme Court hearing that I sat on, and there's never been one like this, with the issues like this.
Yes, there has.
And I don't take it lightly, so we need to do our due diligence. And
what you're doing.
there are other issues, too. There's reproductive choice for women.
What?
There's presidential authority.
What?
There's an opinion that he wrote where he said in a D.C. assault weapons case that assault weapons could not be regulated because they were in common use.
What?
So there are things like that that need to be looked at.
Wait a minute. I thought the investigation was to look into, what's her face? Ballsy Ford, maybe Ramirez, and at the outside, Swetnick, and they're all being looked into, and there's nothing there. And so Friday, it's way too soon. Besides, we got to look into reproductive health because, Brett Kavanaugh wants women to die. And Brett Kavanaugh this and Brett Kavanaugh that. That's why I say somebody has got to stand up and stop this. Shut it down because it isn't going to stop. It is never going to be time to vote. It's never going to be time to end the investigation. It is never going to be time to move this thing forward. Let's take another brief obscene profit break, and we will be right back.
The Rush Limbaugh radio program will continue.
Rush Limbaugh annoying the left coast to coast
on the EIB network.
This is Kello, where the electricity of thought stimulates and sometimes
America's real anchorman, meeting and surpassing all audience expectations all the time. Back to the phones. Well, not back to the phones, since this is our first foray today. This is Waynesville, North Carolina. Dan, you're next. Great to have you with us, sir.
Hey, Rush, mega good news. How are you today?
Good, sir. Thank you.
Good. I just wanted to tell you, my niece got some tickets up in Tennessee, and I grabbed my sister, and we went up to see Donald Trump, and we got there at about 2:30, and unfortunately there was about 60,000 people in front of us in line, but we decided to stay, and had a great time. I spent 4 hours in line. It was so festive, and everybody was happy and well-mannered. I mean, it was just a great place to be.
So you did get in?
No, I did not. But we
You did not get it. So what, did you watch this on the overflow screens or something that they set up?
No, we went home and listened to it on my niece's husband's phone. Johnson City is pretty small, and there was 120,000 people there, and I just didn't want to spend 2 hours getting back to Irwin.
So you drove all the way over from Waynesville, North Carolina. You thought you had tickets. You got there. The line was too big. You couldn't get it. So you went back home and you listened to it on a phone.
Yeah, but we stayed in line for 4 hours. It was fun.
That's how you got to meet people and had a festive good time and all that.
Oh, everybody was waving American flags, and I even bought 4 Trump hats for everybody.
Did you see any depression, sadness, defeatism over the fact that the Democrats are going to win everything in November?
No, sir. There was none of that, and there was no protesters. And I'm telling you, everybody had a great time. In fact, there was a gentleman that started walking back down the field, and he told me that he was 4 away from getting in, and he still had a smile on his face. He says, "Isn't this great?"
Well, it sounds like the news reports of this we had are accurate. Of course, this doesn't jibe with any of the news we keep hearing about Republicans being depressed, uneager, waning enthusiasm, and all of that. And it's just this kind of thing, all during the 2016 campaign. Remember, all of the experts said, this doesn't matter. You can't judge the way an election is going to go by campaign rallies. They don't mean anything. I mean, every candidate's going to have rabid followers that'll show up every. It doesn't mean anything. Well, Hillary didn't. She couldn't fill a thimble by comparison. But they relegated all of these Trump rallies and the enthusiasm and the high attendance to irrelevancy. And they're doing it again. In this case, they're ignoring it. When they do report on it, it's always with a smirk about the attendees and where Trump goes. And they are forgetting that Trump is not doing national rallies. He's doing local rallies for local candidates. By the way, have you noticed, if you've watched any of these, that the candidates Trump is going in to endorse always endorse Trump? They endorse the Trump agenda. They speak glowingly of Trump. I saw a story in the drive-by media commenting on this. It said Trump demands that the candidates he's going in to support sing his praises. This is a critical piece trying to show Trump as insecure, dictatorial, and demanding people on the ballot that may not even support him. They have to laud him. They have to talk about how great he is, or he won't show. And it's more fake news, and it's an ongoing attempt to impugn everybody associated with Republicans and Republican candidates and so forth. But the reality on the ground of this rally in Johnson City, or any of the others, can't be denied. The evidence is there for one and all to see. Back after this.
Somebody has to have the guts to say it. Rush on the EIB network.
Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
Okay, so we just heard Dianne Feinstein say, wait a minute, we got to go back and look at Kavanaugh's rulings on Roe versus Wade and assault weapons. What is that? You weren't able to stop him on those during all of your exhaustive hearings, so you went for rapist and you went for ice thrower, and now you're back to saying his decisions pose a threat? Folks, it means they've got nothing on all this sex stuff if Di-Fi's taking this back now to his danger, represented by the decisions that he's made, which they've already been through inside out. We will be back. So the FBI probe of Kavanaugh expected to wrap up very soon. I asked Snerdley today, are you worried about this? I mean, this is the FBI. These are the people that tried to screw Trump. These are the people that ran the coup. The silent coup. Working with people at DOJ. Now, many of those FBI people are gone, like Strzok, Smirk, and Page, McCabe, Comey, and so. By the way, did I see something? Comey is refusing a request to testify about something, and they're going to have to subpoena him. I saw a graphic on TV about that. We're overloaded here today, folks. It's requiring every talent I have to keep some semblance of organization. Because, I mean, things keep popping. You get the show prepared and show starts and half of it's irrelevant. But we do our best each and every day to make it all make sense once the entire presentation is completed. So the FBI investigation of Kavanaugh is expected to wrap up very soon, say people familiar with the process. This is a Wall Street Journal story. Then, after that, there are stories that say the only people that will see it are senators. McConnell said the only people going to see this report are senators. Remember what the FBI report is. It doesn't have any conclusions in it. Well, it isn't supposed to. It's just a series of 302s. Those are it's like a 1040 ES with the IRS. The 302 is simply an interview form. And the FBI goes out and talks to people and reports what they say. Might compare it with previous statements, turn it over to whoever asked for all this, in this case, the Senate Judiciary Committee, and then they form conclusions based on it. Now, when McConnell says that the only people going to see it are senators, it's guaranteed, therefore, to leak. And depending on what it says or what the conclusion to all this is, will have a lot to say about who ultimately leaks this. McConnell continues to be adamant there's going to be a vote. He's saying that no matter what you people try to intimidate our senators, it isn't going to work. We're going to have a vote on Kavanaugh, ostensibly on Friday. Lawyers for Christine Ballsy Ford say that their client hasn't been interviewed, and they're desperate. They want the FBI to interview her. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not what this is. This is, it says right here, FBI probe of Kavanaugh. And that may be one of the things that's wrong here, but it's not an investigation of Ballsy Ford. It's an investigation of Kavanaugh. And the FBI's already done it 6 times. This is the 7th. There's not an official investigation into her. She's the accuser. She's above reproach, don't you know? This is we're so out of balance here. Women, activist feminazi women, can demand all kinds of investigations into men. Men cannot require or demand investigations into women. You imagine if somebody tried that? I mean, women as an entire gender population of the country. Men are under investigation in this country, be it through Kavanaugh or through Trump or whoever. Now let's get to Trump mocking, this is thehill.com, mocking Christine Ballsy Ford. Let me look at the audio sound bites here. Grab soundbite number 5 and 6. This is what the left is really irritated about today. Last night in South Haven, Mississippi, a suburb of Memphis, it's just barely over the Tennessee-Mississippi state line. And here is Trump. This is another Make America Again rally.
How did you get home? I don't remember. How'd you get there? I don't remember. Where is the place? I don't remember. How many years ago was it? I don't know. What neighborhood was it in? I don't know. Where's the house? I don't know. Upstairs, downstairs, where was it? I don't know. But I had 1 beer. That's the only thing I remember. And a man's life is in tatters. A man's life is shattered.
Now, that is not mocking Ford. Mocking would have been to impersonate her. He didn't do that. See, this is what's wrong. Donald Trump simply voiced what no Republican senator would have. These are the questions she should have been asked last Thursday by Republican senators. Her timeline should have been challenged. Her allegations should have been challenged, but they weren't. The Democrats weren't going to. The Democrats announced her and stated her to be credible. She's above and beyond reproach. You cannot challenge her. She is the accuser. So the Republicans, they played right along and went out and had Rachel Mitchell ask her some questions, which now turn out to be brilliant, but at the time, we were all kind of curious, what the purpose was. All Trump is doing is reminding everybody what she said. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. The people she says were there say they weren't there. This is not mocking her. And this is a sign of what really is wrong in this country. An accuser comes forward and you can't poke holes in obvious places. You can't point out obvious discrepancies. You cannot reference or make mention of the differences in her story depending on the day she's telling it. Whatever this is, it is not mocking Christine Ballsy Ford. Now, Trump has a lot of people saying, but this is crazy, Rush, because last week Trump was saying that she was credible and her testimony was compelling. I have explained this before, and I'm going to explain it again. Trump always, eventually, will tell you what he really thinks about anything. And he may not do that out of the batter's box. I have a name for this. I call it pacing. Trump will initially go out with a general opinion, like on gun control after a shooting, or the Dreamers, or in this case, Dr. Ballsy Ford. He'll call her credible, testimony compelling, and he'll even go so far as to say that, yeah, if she's telling the truth, yeah, then my nomination might be in trouble. Yeah, I'll agree with that. That gives him credibility. It makes people kind of cock their heads. They don't think Trump can be that fair. I'm talking about the media and the left, the Democrats. They don't think Trump can be that reasonable. But he does it to them every time. It gives him the credibility later to be critical and to step away. He said, yeah, I found her credible. I found her compelling. Then as we learn more, and then as events play out, Trump is able to parlay his original statements into what he really thinks based on what is not a knee-jerk reaction. If Trump were to have said initially what he said last night at the rally, why, there would have been hell to pay. But now he can back it up. Now there's all kinds of evidence that her timeline doesn't make any sense. We've got an ex-boyfriend claiming she is a polygraph expert and has taught people how to beat them. We have people challenging her account. We didn't have that last week. It is perfectly fine for Trump to do what he did. It gives him the credibility later to be critical and to step away. It's a common technique he uses. He does it on everything. It's why I've always told you, don't take his first draft statement or his first tweet as a sign that he's caving or flipping. You people, I'm sure you remember, there have been many instances, in fact, I may have fallen for one myself. That's how I learned. That Trump will tweet something or say something, it'll make you look like he's about... Before he pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords, what did he say? Climate change is a very serious thing, and we have to look at it, and we are looking at it, and we'll do the right thing. Oh, so he's on record as being open about... Then later on, when he's learned what he needs to learn, comes out and tells you what he thinks, really thinks. It's a pattern. It's a technique. It's a Trump-developed... I don't even know if he developed or it's just how he does it naturally and instinctively. But I call it pacing. Now, Republicans have not built up this reputation. Senate Republicans haven't. Trump has. Trump has established that after he makes an initial statement on something, and he can make fun of things. And what really irritates the left, he gets away with it. I cannot tell you how it irritates them. See, he shouldn't have survived the Access Hollywood video. He shouldn't have survived anything they've thrown at him. The fact that he has and has continued to prosper and triumph, I cannot tell you how blindly insane it has made them with rage. Other Republicans have not developed the gonads to do this and pull it off. Trump has been attacked so much. We're now, if you go back to 2015, when this campaign started, this is 2018, this is 3 years. In fact, it's 3 years and 3 months. Trump gets in June of 2015. Trump has been attacked so much, he doesn't care anymore. It doesn't bother him anymore, is my point. He's now willing to take the arrows. He's willing to take the hits for everybody else. That's why he is needed, folks. He is willing to do what he did last night. I know Murkowski and Collins are shuddering and cowering in the corner with the vapors. Oh, my God, it was so horrible. It wasn't horrible. Everything he said is true. He was not mocking her. The actress, audio we played, mocked Balsy Ford. Trump didn't. He just simply played. She can't back up. She cannot corroborate. There isn't any corroboration for what she said. Why is that not relevant? Why does that not matter? Why have we gotten to a point where any woman can come forward and accuse any man of anything and it's gospel, and then be joined by a so-called movement called Me Too where all women can join it? Can you imagine if there was something going on there? Can you imagine if men organized for the express purpose of destroying women? You can't even imagine it, can you? You can't even imagine an organized movement, the male version of Me Too.
Well, Rush, I mean, women are not out there sexually abused.
Well, yeah, that does happen, but that's not the point. This is not about, even Bannon said it, this is not just about sexual abuse. This is about raw power. This is about female rage because of things that have happened to them, the leftist women. And they have organized all of these disorders into a giant political movement. I'm just asking you to think, can you envision a movement of men? If such a group existed, and Oprah Winfrey had invited the leader on her show, he'd have been thrown off in the first 10 minutes and have been ridiculed and made fun of for the rest of his life. It could not happen. Women are a minority, and supposedly, even though they're not, in numbers, but it's so out of balance. All Trump did was say what everybody following this knows, even the Democrats. The Democrats know all kinds of holes in her story. Trump doing what he's doing provides a lot of cover for a lot of people. That's one of the many reasons why he's needed. Trump said, guilty until proven innocent. That's very dangerous for our country. That's what this is. That's what the Democrat Party is. And that's what Democrat senators have said, that the accused has to prove he didn't do it, that the accuser doesn't have to corroborate anything. The accuser doesn't have to prove anything. Where? In what civilized society is that real? Trump said, guilty until proven innocent. That's very dangerous for our country. I have it myself all the time, but for me, it's like part of the job description. Let it happen to me. It shouldn't happen to him, meaning Kavanaugh. Translation, I'll take the hits. I will take the arrows. I will stand in the way of bullets, and I'll take them for the team. I got an email. Mr. Limbaugh, question. You barely see it mentioned on TV, but huge news in the last 24 hours that greatly affects the American middle class. Wage growth has hit a 17-month high. Job growth has hit a 7-month high. The stock market has hit another record high. 102 record highs during the Trump presidency. Service industry growth, Mr. Limbaugh, has hit another record high. And trade deals recently negotiated by Trump are helping everybody, particularly farmers. My question, Mr. Limbaugh, do people feel this and know why it's happening? Is anybody knowing this is happening? The media isn't talking about it. Trump is doing all this. Does anybody know it? Good question. Good question. The economy is perking along at a rate Obama never in fact, Obama told everybody this couldn't happen. The Democrats and Obama told everybody it couldn't happen. In the politics of yesterday, this would be all Trump needed to survive and withstand anything. This is why the media is not reporting it. CNBC has the details. Rip-roaring hot jobs market sees private payroll surge by 230,000, the highest since February. Well ahead of expectations. The experts predicted 185,000. Moody's economist Mark Zandi said the current pace suggests an unemployment rate of close to 3% in a year. So all the economic news is out of this world. And it's because of the Trump presidency. It's because of the Trump agenda. The Democrats have told everybody this could not happen. In the midst of all of this, There are two new independent generic ballot polls out. The big one is Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac University poll shows a Democrat generic ballot lead has been cut in half in month. It's gone from 14% to 12% to 7%, basically 50%. The generic ballot lead, the Democrats are losing it. Even Frank Luntz is tweeting this out. Quinnipiac showing Democrat generic ballot lead cut in half in a month. You know why? Kavanaugh. The experts are saying it's Kavanaugh. It's a backlash to Kavanaugh. And there's another story here about suburban women turning to Trump in droves because of Kavanaugh. Suburban women used to be the deadlock of the Democrat Party. College-educated suburban. I got to take a break. I just saw the clock. I'll find that. Be right back. Stay with me.
The most trusted name in talk radio, Rush Limbaugh on the EIB network.
This is Callow, where the only record you hear is one of outstanding...
All right, let's go to the phones. I've got the suburban women story. I'll save it for just a second. I got to get to the phones. It's been an hour and a half. I'm sorry, folks. This is Brian, St. Augustine, Florida. I really, really, really appreciate your waiting. Thank you.
Thanks, Rush. I just wanted to say that Kavanaugh is the scapegoat for all of the women who have been sexually assaulted but were afraid or embarrassed to report it.
Well, you may have a point. I think you're right along. You're right in line with one of my newfound theories, and it's actually not a newfound theory. What it is a very late arrival on my part of being able to verbalize it. You've heard over the years liberalism's a mental disease, and all kinds of people have said that. And I thought that's too simplistic, and besides, it's not effective. I mean, even if it's true, it's not going to be effective to say that. But that doesn't erase the fact that we're dealing with some genuine, incomprehensible, emotional problems on the part of these people. And I have to give credit where credit is due. It was a little blurb by Jim Garrity at National Review that caused the explosion of brain synapses in the frontal lobe here. He said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have it right in front of me, but he said, I don't even think this is what I think psychological disorders, people with psychological disorders have become liberals in politics. That psychological disorders, people who have them, have brought their disorders into politics, and rather than just a singular thing that happened to them, they make it all about the country did it to them, or an entire population did it to them. And I think that's exactly what liberalism is and has become, and that's where we agree.
You're listening to Rush's Week in Review.
Greetings and welcome back, Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network. Folks, here's the Jim Garrity quote from National Review. The more time I spend covering politics, the more I'm convinced that a significant chunk of grassroots political activists are not really arguing about politics at all. These people are actually struggling with personal psychological issues and projecting them onto the world of politics. Bingo! I've been searching for that description for years. I have no problem admitting that I was unable to put this together. It's one of the rare moments I was unable to. This is exactly right. We're dealing with people who have suffered some kind of psychological disorder. They've turned to politics for the solution, or the revenge is actually what they're looking for. And they don't just want revenge against whoever did whatever to them. They are now demanding that every representative of the group the individual that did something to them be made to pay a price for it. It's what the Me Too movement in large part was never bipartisan. It was thought to be, said to be, but it never was. And even if it was, it's been co-opted by the Democrat Party. Look at the Occupy Wall Street movement. Look at Black Lives Matter. Take any left-wing group that you want. It's made up of people who, for some reason, think they have been unjustly mistreated by somebody, And instead of dealing with that in their lives, they enter politics and they demand that the Democrat Party take up their cause. And the Democrat Party willingly has. The Democrat Party has become the party of all of these disparate constituency groups with their singular causes, because the Democrat Party realizes that they can combine all of these things into a singular assault on the concept of America, that America is responsible for what happened to these people, that capitalism is responsible, that the power structure, that the founding is responsible. And so people with psychological disorders are being granted the status of normalcy, and then the big donors come along and underwrite them and fund their efforts, and they become political movements. And then they become victims, and that, of course, allows them to blame everybody for what has gone wrong in their lives. And then they demand reciprocity or revenge or what have you. And I contend to you that most people on our side have no idea how to deal with this. No idea whatsoever. So we end up in debates about whether boys want to pretend to be girls so they can go into girls' bathrooms. And it becomes legitimate. And it's sick. In many, not that specifically, but just the whole concept of what is happening here. And it is a violent, bullying, intimidating movement that has been constructed to push all of these disparate various agendas. And the target is America. The target is America as founded. The target is American capitalism. And so when our caller says that Kavanaugh is simply a stand-in for men who have abused every woman out there, he's right. Ballsy Ford will end up being supported by other women who've been abused, whether she's telling the truth or not. It doesn't matter. Because it did happen to them. These women we don't know that are out there watching this. It did happen to them. And by God, somebody's going to pay for it. In this case, it'll be Kavanaugh. That's how they're going to be heard, rather than just deal with the specific incident that happened to them. It's the same thing, I think, with Black Lives Matter or the NFL players kneeling for the anthem. All cops are bad. Every white cop is a racist. Every black convict is innocent. And every instance here points to the country at large as being responsible in unfairness, in bias, in discrimination, in racism, all of this. The Democrat Party is the organizing party, the collection agency for all of these complaints. Democrat Party's happy to make victims out of anybody who wants to be one. And Democrat Party is happy to promise these people that they'll fix it. And they never do. The rage and the anger never ends. It only gets worse because the Democrats don't fix anything. And finally, it doesn't even depend on being fixed. It just means somebody's got to pay. In this case, Kavanaugh. He's going to pay, whether he did it or not. Now, Sarah Sanders, White House press briefing is going on. She just laid into the press, and she said exactly what I said, if I don't mind saying so. She said Trump didn't mock anybody last night. He simply recited the facts. And he said all of this can be laid at the feet of the Democrats. They're to blame for this. None of this needed have happened in public. They had Ballsy Ford's email or letter way back in July. They could have done everything that's been done to investigate her claim off record, behind the scenes, nobody knowing about it. But they didn't do that. They waited to use it as a Hail Mary. She disputes the idea that Trump mocked. She said all he was doing was reciting the facts. Here it is again. This is what the press, the media, everybody is out now ripping Trump, claiming that he mocked Christine Ballsy Ford.
How did you get home? I don't remember. How'd you get there? I don't remember. Where is the place? I don't remember. How many years ago was it? I don't know. What neighborhood was it in? I don't know. Where's the house? I don't know. Upstairs, downstairs, where was it? I don't know. But I had one beer. That's the only thing I remember. And a man's life is in tatters. A man's life is shattered.
That is the point. Christine Ford is fine. Christine Ford is absolutely fine, despite how she acts. Kavanaugh's life shattered, ruined. His wife, his family, his past, his present, his future. Destroyed. They don't care. Sheldon Whitehouse. I'm sorry, not Sheldon. Senator Kennedy from Louisiana. This guy is a walking soundbite. This guy's out there. He's saying things like some Democrats have no soul. Their mothers must not have breastfed them. They don't care who gets destroyed. Dr. Ford, her confidentiality, her family. They don't care if Kavanaugh gets destroyed. This is John Kennedy, Republican U.S. Senator from Louisiana. Some of my colleagues on the Democrat side are in good faith. Some, I'm convinced, don't even have a soul. Their mothers didn't breastfeed them. They didn't have to. They went to raw meat. They went right to raw meat. They don't care who gets destroyed, Dr. Ford or her confidentiality, her family. They don't care if Kavanaugh gets destroyed or his reputation. And Senator Kennedy said, what I'm hearing from voters in Louisiana is enough. And right on cue from American Greatness, Democrats risk losing suburban women with Kavanaugh attacks. By Julie Kelly. I'm not a crier. One of my best friends teases me that Satan cries more than I do. My husband jokes about my 6-second cry when I finally do shed some tears. But as I watched Kavanaugh's opening statement at committee last Thursday, I cried. And for more than 6 seconds. I wept for him, for his crushed wife seated behind him, for his young daughters, for his friends, for his parents. I cried for our country. It was an emotional release of sympathy, frustration, and rage, and I wasn't alone. Several of my friends admitted they'd had the same reaction. Molly Hemingway mirrored the feelings of millions of women when she choked up that evening during an interview with Tucker Carlson. She said, I was sobbing when I was watching it. I heard that a lot from people as well. It was hard. It was just hard to watch those clips here. The Democrats' insistence that due process and a presumption of innocence do not apply to men, particularly conservative white men, is a terrifying prospect for the husbands and sons and fathers and brothers and friends that women love. The abject insistence on denial of due process, denial of presumption of innocence. Trump laid it out. She cannot confirm what she said. She has holes throughout all of it, and yet she is said to be eminently credible, and we can't challenge it. So Trump does. I'm telling you, folks, you better be thankful. If Trump hadn't done it, you wouldn't be hearing it anywhere but here and elsewhere in conservative media. And don't think that suburban women all across America aren't seeing the same thing. They are. Here's more Trump from the rally in South Haven, Mississippi last night. Here he took a shot at Swetnick and that lawyer Avenatti.
We had another woman just reported by a sleazebag lawyer named Aviate. Sleazebag. Well, it turned out even NBC, who's as bad as they get, even NBC couldn't shield her with that interview. Did you see that interview? This woman had no clue what was going on.
Sarah Sanders is saying to the press at the briefing that every bit of evidence they've seen so far supports Kavanaugh's case, and it does. And I have taken another break. Folks, I've taken one call in an hour and 45 minutes, and I really have to apologize. Let me tell you how this show does not happen. This show, we don't have producers in meetings. We don't plan segments here, and no matter what happens, do the segments. This show is entirely improv, and on days like this, it's reactionary, meaning things are happening on the fly. We have to react to them and try to keep some semblance of organization. And so it seems like with every break, something new happens that takes precedence over what I had planned to do just 5 minutes earlier. And that's what is being dealt with today. So, I mean, you do it on an improv basis, it's its own challenge. As opposed to TV shows, which are produced in advance, segments are laid out and planned, and the only time they blow through that is if they have to join something, cover it live. But we don't do that. So we're doing our best here to get all these elements in, and if you're on hold, I appreciate it. I really do. We'll get to you as soon as I can.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh,
America's gift to broadcasting
on the EIB network.
Entertaining talk and news when it happens on Kello and Kello.com.
So Rambo Blumenthal is out there attacking Trump and his vile attack on Dr. Ford. They call him Da Nang Dick. This is the guy that lied for many years about serving with bravery and honor in Vietnam when he had never, ever been there. He literally claimed that people were dying all around him, but that he and his platoon kept doing their job. He was never there. The guy's a sicko. He's a pathological liar. He got called out on it. The people of Connecticut still elected the guy who used to be the Attorney General of State. Now he's a senator. I call him Rambo. Rambo Blumenthal. And I wish he would just sit in his office and play with his G.I. Joe dolls and be quiet. But no, he's out there claiming that Trump's vile attack on Dr. Ford disrespected the entire survivor community. We have a survivor community now. A survivor of men community now. It's on CNN. And here it is. This is even the Connecticut senator who himself has been the target of attacks from Trump. The target of attacks from Trump? The guy was a flat-out liar. What do you mean the target of attacks from Trump? Trump didn't attack anybody. He told everybody who the guy is. And here is Sarah Sanders from the press briefing just now, exactly as I said. She got a question from John Roberts. And it was all about, do you think that maybe the president shouldn't have done it, mocking her like that, because you get Collins and Murkowski and it may affect the way they vote? And it's horrible. Do you think the president maybe should have not done it?
The president was stating the facts, and frankly, facts that were included in Special Prosecutor Rachel Mitchell's report. He was stating facts that were given during Dr. Ford's testimony, and the Senate has to make a decision based on those facts and whether or not they see Judge Kavanaugh to be qualified to hold the position on the Supreme Court. Every single word Judge Kavanaugh has said has been picked apart. Every single word, second by second, of his testimony has been picked apart. Yet if anybody says anything about the accusations that have been thrown against them, that's totally off limits and outrageous.
Exactly right. You can't challenge her. So Trump did. For everybody else who doesn't have the gonads to do it, Trump did it. And yeah, he's providing a little shade for some of these people to hide under. And I'll guarantee you, they may be publicly saying, I wish he hadn't done it. That's outrageous what Trump did. They're thanking everybody he did it privately. Somebody has to say it. It's the freaking truth. Okay, now back to the phones. And we go to Toms River, New Jersey. Avram is next, and he is 15 years old. Avram, I'm glad you waited. You're next on the program. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Rush. It's great to speak to you again.
Great to have you back.
Yep. It's great to be on again. Anyway, so watching this whole thing, the Me Too movement, watching the Kavanaugh hearings. I'm 15. I'm just a regular straight guy. Nothing too abnormal. But I think that I really cannot believe any of these women that pop up on TV anymore. You can't believe any of them. Who are coming, the guy raped me, the guy did this to me, did that to me. You had this girl on CNN a couple of months ago was saying that a guy raped her because he asked her for her phone number. Can't believe any of them. And I think that what this whole Me Too
okay,
thing
now wait,
really
that, Avram, hang on.
Everyone.
That is my exact point. I believe that woman. I believe she thinks she was raped when somebody asked her for her number. That's how she's been conditioned. Women's studies on campus, the outright hatred for men. I keep talking about it, but it's relevant. Catherine McKinnon, this is back in the 90s. She was a professor of women's studies at Michigan. She taught women in her class that all sex is rape, even the sex of marriage. The women were lapping it up. And women have been taught for 2 generations now that men are basically predators and that their own kids are not safe from their fathers. And it's not random. It's widespread. It is part and parcel of higher education today. So you have a woman, and she could be acting. I mean, she could be making this up, could be a political activist. But it's entirely possible at the same time, Avram, that because of what she's been taught and heard on the news and talking to her, she may literally believe that men have no right to ask for her phone number. It's the same thing as bullying her or raping her. That's my point. She may really believe it.
No, well, Rush, the same women that are screaming about how they've been raped are also the ones who want to have the right to have an abortion so they could have unlimited sex.
Avram. You're right. Sex without consequences, but you better not.
But then they claim that all men are predators, but then they run to hook up, and then they want to have abortions for free.
When it's their idea, then everything's fine. If the hookup is their idea. By the way, you're also right. It's not all women, but it's been made to look like that, isn't it? The Me Too movement supposedly includes all women. Women all across America who do not think this way are being lumped into this movement against their will. It's just an assumption that the Democrats and the drive-by media are making. I think, Avram, you're young, you're growing up. I think you're going to be okay finding a woman, but you got to be real careful about it. Just get written permission for every move you make. Get it notarized after the date.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh,
the big voice on the right,
on the EIB network.
This is Kello, where food for thought sometimes comes out half-baked.